Alright guys, welcome to another video. And so I've shared with you the products that I'm going to be using with my 10 handmade cards, one homemade kit video. And so now let's start creating the cards. This is my first card and I have pre-stamped, pre-colored and pre-cut all of those tiny images, and I really love them. They're so cute, especially the little teddy bear. It's so cute. So I did cut out the scallop background pattern paper and also the blocks that you see there, the three smaller squares and then one long one. I cut that out using my favorite things blueprints die, and I really love that die, and so I'm glad I have it. And then in this particular card, the plan is that I will have three of the bears sticking out from the squares, and then I'm going to have my sentiment be on the bottom. And so I'm just kind of figuring out where my bears would be before I adhere the panel there in the center. And I gotta say that because I adore those bears a lot, I made a ton of them. And so they're going to make an appearance on almost all of my cards here in this series. But for now, I'm going to have just three of them here. So I want them to peek out. The design itself has the bear kind of waving and saying hello. So I felt like that's a good, like I can incorporate that here where they're peeking out and just kind of saying hello here. And I'm going to add them. Now, if my bears were a little bit bigger, I would probably have to cut them, like trim them out so that you're not seeing the body of the bear outside of the lines, but because they were small enough that I didn't have to trim the bear itself. And I had turned over my liquid adhesive just because I was getting tired of having to turn them over and over again when I need them. Now, I don't know if you remember, but I had this small 3x3 or 4x4 cardstock pack from Die Cuts with a View that already have adhesive in the back, and that's what I used to cut out a bunch of those happy word dies from Heidi Swap. And so I just adhered that word happy there without any extra adhesive, and I'm going to spell out the rest of my sentiment with these tiny letter alphabets from my little shoebox that I pulled specifically for this kit. And I'm just going to spell happy for you. And this card really went by fast. I will be adding some, I felt like the bearers needed a little bit something, and so I'm going to add that. Oh no, I don't think I will add some shimmer to this because I will add the rhinestones to it, but I will be adding some shimmer to other cards for my bears. And that is card number 1. And then we go on to card number 2. And again, I'm going to have the bears peeking out, but instead of the squares, I'm going to have them peek out behind the circles. And I got to say, this is, if not my favorite, one of my favorites from this 10 card set, because I just love how the cards or the bears are peeking out. I love the colors. It was really cute. So I am going to, of course, have a background piece there because the circles are open. And so, I mean, I could have left that and just have you see the white background, but I like to have a little bit more color there. And the specific pattern paper that I picked, although it has some elements to it, it's very subtle. It has just some candies there, so I thought it would be a good background for the card, which would be a birthday themed. And also I felt like the white on there is also just what my card needed to have, like this subtle colors, but not take away from the pink heart that is in the foreground. And then I decided to add fun foam to the back side of the foreground paper just to have not the bunnies, the bears, so that the bears will stand out a little bit more. I do feel like it's floating, but then it's a little bit more emphasized rather than just having it go directly on top of that paper. And I love the layers of it. And I'm going to go ahead and grab another word, happy, but this time from a yellow cardstock, and I'm adhering that, and I'm going to spell out birthday with the mini alphas that I used here. And that's pretty much my card. I will be using some shimmer to the bears and so that it will have a little bit of shine, and then I'll add a little bit more accent to it, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Here I am just using my shimmer pen and adding some glitter to the bears. This time I'm thinking, okay, I want some more something onto the pink cardstock. And at first I thought about the rhinestone, but I really didn't want to add any more bumps to this layout because it's already kind of raised. And I have this tiny heart punch that I used for a layout that was sitting on my table, and I thought, well, I can use that with the gold paper that I pulled out from my for this particular layout, or for this particular kit. And so I pulled that out, and what's interesting was that heart punch will be used in a few other layouts here. So I guess my encouragement for you is, if you have items in on your table already from when you're creating previous cards or previous projects, don't be shy to like see if you can incorporate that with the items that you are working on right now, because you never know what combos will work well. Now, in this particular one, I wanted to create a scene. I don't really use scenes very much, but I thought, hey, you know what? Why not? I have all of these little tiny elements. I wanted to kind of incorporate them as much as I can. So I had cut out the circle using the die cut circle that I had nested die circle that I had pulled out for this particular kit, and then I am going to use that to house some little embellishments. Now I felt like there was something missing on the bottom of it, and I remembered that I still had some die cut grass that I had used. I think it was a lawn fawn die cut that I had used for this particular grass, and I kept that in my die cut binder. If you're interested in the die cut binder, I will make sure to link that in the description box, or if I know how to do that, the put it on the top left of a video, I will do that. But make sure to check that out if you're interested. It's just a little binder where I house all of my die cuts. Now, I had wanted my grass to kind of overlap each other, but I've cut the small one too small that you can still see some pink on the sides of it, and I didn't like that. So I am going to take that out, and then I will have a space of the pink just kind of showing on the bottom. And so this is where I pull that out, and I'm just going to have a little bit of that pink. And I'm thinking, well, having the whole pink there is better than having a little bit of the pink in the grass showing on the sides. And so I'm going to stick with that, but later on I will be able to cover that up with my sentiment block. But for now, I'm just going to just start creating my design here. And I have a little bit of a mailbox, the heart banner. I have the this heart kind of a wind meal type of thing. And then I have a pot of like pink hearts. So I'm just going to add a little bit of that here. And then, of course, my cute teddy bear will be in the center of it, waving hello to you, or waving hello to the recipient of this card. And I'm going to add him or her in the foreground with some foam adhesive, because this cute teddy bear is the center attraction for this scene. And I really love how that turned out. Now, because I have the scene in the foreground and I wanted that to stand out, I used a subtle heart paper, for my background piece, just so that it won't go or the colors won't go against the foreground already. Now, I didn't want to do any didn't want to use any stamping stamp sentiment for this particular card set, but I just felt like this card needed that because I don't know, I just felt like if I use the smaller stickers that it would just be too blocky. I needed some script, I needed some flow to this card. And so I pulled this one stamp set that I have from Simon Says Stamp, and that's what I'm using here. And I actually end up using that same stamp set for another card. So, I mean, this is my card kit, this is my series, so I can do whatever I want, right? But I just feel like sometimes when it's good to work with parameters, but sometimes if you feel like it's not quite working, then just pull out something else from your stash, right? Because it's still gonna work. So again, I'm pulling out this heart mini punch, which I didn't realize that I would end up really loving for this card kit, but it's just the perfect size for the cards. I think it's like only like a 1/4 inch size, or maybe a, I know it's not as big as a 1/2 inch, but I just love those hearts. So I got to make a mental note to use my smaller punch sets for card sets as well. So instead of using the gold, I'm using some silver. I felt like the silver would stand out a little bit more onto the background piece, and so that's what I'm doing here. Moving them around just so that to make it fit the angle that I wanted it to. And I'm using some mini glue dots to adhere those tiny hearts. So now we're going to go on to card number 4. And there is a big trend going on now of the slimline cards. And I had made one, I think it was like, I don't know, the beginning of the year or maybe late last year. And I really liked that. And I actually even already used it. I sent it to my father-in-law as a birthday card. And so I felt like I needed to do more slimline cards. And so this is my first of 3 slimline cards that I will be making with this particular mini kit, or paper kit rather. And so I wanted to, because a slimline card is, I feel like it's a bigger canvas than your normal A2 size, I wanted to emphasize or show off some of the pattern papers from the 6x8 card kit that I have. And so I am going to incorporate that. Initially, I had wanted the border, a border in the center, but I didn't really like how I was putting or how do I say it? It's like I didn't want that there, I needed to have 2 of those and they're kind of put together in the center. And so I am going to go through my 6x8 card set and look at some of these cut aparts that maybe I can use. And this one says, "Have I told you lately that I love you?" And I thought that was a really good one. Initially, I'd wanted maybe I can do it on the bottom right of the layout and then have these bears kind of going all around it. But then I felt, okay, well, if I'm going to do the bears all around it, might as well center the sentiment onto the card. So that's what I'm going to do here. And I had pulled out just a scrap of red cardstock, and I am going to mat that just to make it stand out against all of those busy backgrounds. And I had a corner rounder on my table. I gotta tell you that when I create, just because sometimes I don't have a lot of time, that I don't bother cleaning up my surface. And so I have all of these things that I'd used from previous projects that's just sitting on the edge of my table. And so sometimes I pull them because it's already within my reach. And so I had this corner rounder punch, and I rounded the corners of just the 2 edges of the edge papers. I didn't feel like the other papers in the center needed to be rounded. And so I'm going to adhere those. I did ink up the edges as well. And then I don't know if you remember, but those circles that I'm using, they are the positives from card number 2. I punched out some circles to create the windows where my bears were peeking out. And so I had these circles just lying around. And I thought, well, maybe I can use that. And initially I thought maybe I can use all three, but I ended up just using two as kind of a bookends or corners for my sentiment. And I'm also still incorporating the hearts. I wanted to add some hearts here. I didn't know where to add them, but I ended up adding them on the bottom of the sentiment. And I added three. Initially, I maybe thought maybe five would be good, but three was enough for this particular card. Now we go on to the fifth card, and will be the last card of this video. If you have not subscribed yet, make sure that you do, because then and also hit that bell button so that YouTube will notify you when I post the rest of the cards from this particular set. And I usually divide my cards just because I feel like this is going to be a long voiceover is if I do all 10 cards in one particular video. So this time around, with my blueprints die set from My Favorite Things, it not only has the scallop and the frame, but it also has like tiny shapes and images, and one of those is a heart. And so I thought that since the the paper has a very Valentine theme, it has a lot of hearts, and so I decided to use that die cut and use the pattern papers from the set and create my own background with lots of hearts. And that's what I'm doing here. I did cut out a background piece using the gold and just used scallop there. I thought that would be good. And now I'm just layering or adhering the hearts kind of all around my frame here. Now you're probably wondering why all around, because I have my sentiment, that circle one that says you are one of a kind. It is the sentiment was already in a heart, and so I cut that out with my circle die, and then I just felt like it needed to stand out a little bit more against all of the background, and so I used my scallop die and create a scallop background that's actually the back side of a pattern paper from that same 6x8. I like to do that, especially if it's a single-sided paper, so that I can maximize the papers that I already am using. And plus, if it's if it's a design that I don't really care for, that I can at least use the paper, even if it's just for the white background. And so I left the center blank with hearts because I know that I'm going to be using this circle accent anyway, so there's no point in me cutting another heart for that center. And then this is going to be it. Now, if I were to do this again, I would have left this alone, but I felt like the heart for the sentiment needed to stand out a little bit more. And so I am pulling out my Nouveau drops, and I'm going to add some drops or dots of circles here. But for some reason my Nouveau drops are, I don't know, I think it's because I don't use them anymore, maybe because it's a place where I start. It's not creating that perfect circle that I have or that I want. And so it has these peaks when I pull it up, and so I'm trying to be very gentle, trying to make my perfect circles, but it's not working. And so I'm going to end up grabbing a pin or a needle and kind of like push down or erase some of those really like stringy peaks of the circle. And I mean, it's all good. It's just that, in my mind, I was visualizing a perfect drops of circles, but it's not working. So if you have any recommendations for me as far as how to properly store my Nouveau drops, please leave that in the comment section below, because I'm sure that there is a human error on my part why this is not coming out as it's supposed to be. I don't know. Anyways, it is what it is. Card is done, and I'm glad that it is done. I still like the card, but I just wish that those circles would have been a little bit more perfect. Anyways, if you have any questions, make sure to leave that in the comment section below. If you're inspired, encouraged by the cards that I'm creating, pull out some items in your stash and create your own card kit and make 10 handmade cards with it. And I will see you in the next video. Bye!